The national campaign manager, Donald Trump for president, Corey Lewandowski, finally, we hope, got some sleep. And good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning.
Now, we saw you on TV last night on CNN in the spin room looking as dapper as ever. And I don't know how you guys maintain the attitude, because whenever I text you or talk to you or email you, I'm saying to myself, does this guy ever sleep?
Well, it's not about sleep. Honestly, it's about trying to do something to the best of our ability and put all of our effort into it, because, we can sleep in 4 or 8 years if we have a privilege there. But right now there's no time for sleep. And, we take our cues from Mr. Trump, who is just a tremendous person who has so much energy and is always looking to get things done. And he pushes us to be, as high energy and as successful as he is. So, sleep is really not a priority for us. And as you know, we run a very lean campaign,
That's
relatively
right.
speaking, compared to the others. So many people do different jobs and do a lot of jobs, and that's how the country should be. Run lean, run successful. We have spent the least amount of money. We're in first place. And I say that because that's the type of mindset that the country should have, is let's spend the least and get the best.
Okay, I want to talk about last night's debate, Corey, in Texas. Basically, both Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz going after Trump for 2.5 hours. I thought, my own impression of it is, I thought he did extremely well. I think that's the kind of guy you want on the main stage with either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or someone else. But I want to talk about, let's just start with, as his campaign manager, how did you, when it was all said and done, assess Mr. Trump's overall performance last night?
Well, we had a great night, clearly. If you look at any of the online polls, it doesn't matter which one you look at, Donald Trump won that debate last night. Donald Trump stood center stage for the 10th Republican presidential debate in a row, took incoming from all sides, from Marco Rubio, from Ted Cruz, who are career politicians whose only goal now is to appease their donors and attack Donald Trump. They don't want to lay out what they actually want to do and how to make America great again. They don't want to lay out their vision. What they want to do is attack the front runner, who has been the front runner, who has won 3 out of the first 4 nominating contests, who is building a new Republican Party, who is bringing people in who have either not been involved or been so disenfranchised that they haven't voted in 20 years. He's bringing those people in. They're turning out in droves with massive turnout numbers in New Hampshire, in South Carolina, in Nevada. And they are so concerned, and the political elites and the political establishment is so concerned that they're telling these elected officials who are standing on the stage, these senators who are career politicians, all talk, no action, you have to go and attack Donald Trump. And that's what they tried to do, and ultimately they weren't successful.
Look, 2.5 hours, it almost seemed last night like they had their big shot and just didn't really do any damage. And I think at the end of the night, I think you came out ahead of where you were going in. Let's get, though, Corey Lewandowski, to some of the specific personal attacks and allegations made last night against Mr. Trump, specifically by Senator Rubio. Let's start out. He spent a lot of time last night talking about the fact that Mr. Trump, when he was 34 years old, hired Polish workers back in the 1970s. What was that about?
Well, look, again, this is a desperate attempt from a desperate individual, Marco Rubio, who was supposed to have a 3-2-1 strategy, which is what he publicly said. They're going to come in third in Iowa, second in New Hampshire, and first in South Carolina. But the voters have candidly rejected his notion. They don't want another Washington career politician. Marco's talking about something that took place basically before he was born. Marco's a young guy with not much experience. We've been through the first-term U.S. Senator who doesn't want to finish out his term and goes and runs for the President of the United States, and for the last 8 years our country has suffered for it. I don't think we're ready to try that exercise again. What we see with Marco Rubio, he's a pro-amnesty, open borders U.S. Senator, probably the most pro-amnesty, open borders U.S. Senator, and because of his failing campaign to this point where he hasn't been able to notch a victory, he was supposed to win in Nevada, he absolutely got blown out of the water. He is now trying to get the donors to be convinced that he has the strength to stand up to a Donald Trump, and the bottom line is he can't, and moreover, he will never fix Washington, D.C. When you look at the public polls and say who is best to go to Washington, D.C. and fundamentally change the system, which is corrupt and broken, nobody says Marco Rubio. it's Donald Trump is the answer. When you look at the public polls and they say, who best to protect us from ISIS and fix the economy, it's Donald Trump time and time and time again. And so what you have is you have these individuals, these candidates, not Ben Carson, who's an honorable guy, and not John Kasich, but Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, who want to level attacks on Donald Trump because their campaigns are in deep trouble, and they thought that the establishment class would be supporting them, and now they have to do something leading up into Super Tuesday.
Well, it just struck me, and I'm going to be very candid. When you have to go back into the 70s, when you have to go back 3.5 decades of somebody's world to criticize them over something, Corey, I said this earlier, I'm 58. I can't imagine somebody trying to go back and figure out what I did when I was 23 years old. I mean, who knows? Who cares? I thought that was not only asinine to go back that far, but it really told me that they couldn't find anything more relevant than that. I mean, that was in the 70s, for heaven's sake.
Donald Trump's life has been an open book, right? He has had an amazingly public life for the last 40 years. You know, if we want to talk about 40 years ago, I think Ted Cruz was still living in Canada at the time. I'm not sure, right? So, you know, we're not going to go back that far and talk about that. But I do think, 40 years ago, Senator Cruz was still living in Canada where he was born. And so, I don't know what Marco was doing 40 years ago. I think the guy was about 3 years old at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's very interesting that all of a sudden when it's convenient, these guys want to go back and talk about things, when they weren't even, one wasn't even in the United States and the other one probably, wasn't a major contributor to society. And Donald Trump is employing tens of thousands of people at the time, building skyscrapers, helping our economy. And these guys don't want to talk about that. Don't forget, Donald Trump is the only person on that stage who's ever created a job. It's very clear. These career politicians, they create one thing: more bureaucracy, more red tape, more trouble for the average worker. They've never created a job. They talk a great game. They've got this amazing pitter-patter about the thing that they rehearse to say, and instead of actually getting things done, they just talk and talk and talk. And their answer is, well, I'm just one of 100 U.S. senators, and I couldn't get it done. That is not the mindset that we need. We need a business executive who can go and run our country successfully. Look, here's where we are in this campaign. We have such a privilege. Donald Trump is funding his own campaign. We have spent the least amount of money and have gotten the best results so far. And I say that because that's what our country should be doing. We need to stop getting taken advantage of from everybody else in the world.
Well, leading by example, without a doubt. Okay, one of the other allegations last night from Marco Rubio, and he mentioned it over and over and over, was something about this Trump University, saying there was a lawsuit, allegations of fraud. This has been playing out for some time. What's the deal with that?
So there's a civil case from some people who attended the university and have said that, the vast majority of the people who attended Trump University, which was a non-degree university, said, they're unbelievable respect for it and had a great experience there. But there's always some people who want to go and see the name Trump on the door and try and file a lawsuit thinking that they're going to get something very quickly. And Mr. Trump could settle this, civil lawsuit anytime he wanted to. He has already won the vast majority of this case. But because he refuses to do so, because he's not going to give and he's not going to cave, what you have is individuals who have never built a business, never done anything successfully, trying to take advantage of a system which, candidly, there's nothing to take advantage of. And so Donald Trump could settle a class action, a civil lawsuit against him if he wanted to. He would win. He doesn't want to do that because he's a fighter, because you fight for what is right. And so he's going to continue to move forward with this through the judicial process, and we're going to see what happens. But look, Marco Rubio, again, wants to talk about something. What has Marco Rubio's accomplishment been, his single biggest accomplishment been in the U.S. Senate? They asked Rick Santorum that very question when he endorsed Marco Rubio, and his answer was a series of stutters and the fact that Marco hasn't actually been there very often in the U.S. Senate and that he actually hasn't achieved anything. And so Marco Rubio is running for a position of the greatest, most powerful position in the free world, the President of the United States, and his own surrogates cannot point to one example of something that Marco has achieved in the United States Senate which would elevate him to potentially be the President of the United States. This is Senator Rick Santorum, who served in the body of the U.S. Senate, who can't point to one example. They had a congressman on 2 days ago asking the exact same question, and he had the exact same stuttering response, which was, I don't know what he's actually accomplished. And that's a real shame. So maybe our country needs to take a real hard look at a first-term unsuccessful U.S. senator to determine if that's the type of leadership that our country wants. And I think overwhelmingly our country's going to step up and say they don't.
And the reality of this, and look, it just, facts are facts. Facts don't lie. Marco Rubio, seems to be a good father, good dad, good guy. Outside of politics, he's never had a job in his life outside of politics. So, I mean, we got a country that's circling the drain, and we've got a very enthusiastic young man that's never had a job outside of politics in his lifetime. Haven't we already been down that route? I think that would be the question that I would have on that.
Well, John, we have, but also you got to remember, he has created a job. It's another government bureaucracy job. Right? You get this massive staff in Washington, D.C. You get this big staff in Florida that work for the taxpayers. Marco Rubio works for the taxpayers, and he's missed 80% of his votes this year.
Right.
More than any other U.S. senator. If that was the private sector, if you worked for the Trump Corporation, you decided not to show up every day, or if you worked for your corporation, decided not to show up every day, you'd be summarily fired.
Yep.
But when you work for the taxpayers, there's no recourse. So, look, if Marco wants to go and be the President of the United States, quit being a U.S. senator, stop stealing taxpayer money because you stop showing up for work every day, go out and do something that shows that you are trying to earn it. And that's not what he's doing. He's taking taxpayers' money right now. He's not showing up for work. He's missing briefing after briefing. He missed a series of briefings, post the terrorist attacks in San Bernardino. He just doesn't show up for work anymore. If you don't like your job, go quit. As a matter of fact, as you know, in the town hall meeting with Anderson Cooper, he said, if I were still in the U.S. Senate, he doesn't even remember what his job is. He stopped showing up so much.
Right.
So this is a tragedy of our political system, is that we've got people who are living off of taxpayers' money that aren't showing up for work anymore, and there's no ability to fire those people, and that's a shame.
It is. Let's get to former presidential candidate, Governor of Massachusetts, former Governor Mitt Romney, criticizing you guys on Twitter last night about not releasing your tax returns. Seemed a little bit like the pot calling the kettle black, but he did that. And then Marco Rubio picking up on it. Why don't you just go ahead and release them?
Well, so let me just say this, with all due respect to Governor Romney. If you remember when he was running for president, he released a partial return in January of 2012. Governor Romney didn't release his final tax returns until September 21st, 2012, 5 weeks before the general election. The only reason he did that is because he was so inundated in the media that he finally caved. Right?
Yes.
And if you look, Marco Rubio has not released his tax returns, Ben Carson has not released his tax returns, Governor Casey has not released his tax returns, and Ted Cruz has not released his tax returns. So, while Governor Romney wants to call on Donald Trump, who, by the way, has a tax return that's probably 1,000 pages long, and it's significantly more complex than the individuals who, filed the 1040 EZ form, or, basically live off the government and have no other assets. It's a little more complex. I think it's very disingenuous for Mitt Romney to call on people. And look, and I can tell you this on the record because I know the people who were part of this conversation. Mitt Romney did not want to release his taxes in 2012, and he did everything humanly possible to stop from doing that. He had a series of private conversations that said, I don't want to do this. What is the political fallout? Can you guys help me? I'm not going to go on the Sunday shows and talk about this because I don't want to release my taxes. I know that happened unequivocally. He cannot deny it happened. And the bottom line is he was pressured into doing something. Here's the thing. Donald Trump has said from day one, and he said it many times, I will release my taxes, and I will do it as soon as I am done being audited. The IRS is a bad agency. Let's remember this. This wasn't that long ago when they were targeting people based on their political beliefs to go after 501c3 tax status and determine Lois Lerner was using the IRS as a political weapon.
Right.
And what we know is that Donald Trump's tax returns, because they are massive, because he's built this massive corporation, is maybe 1,000 pages long, and he has consistently been audited by the IRS over the last 20 years, almost every single year. He has been audited, and those audits are still under review right now, and as soon as they're completed, he was very clear he'll be happy to release those.
There you have it. So as soon as the audit's over, you've made a commitment, you're going to release them immediately, right?
That's exactly right. He said as soon as the IRS finishes their job and finishes the audit, because he is audited every single year, he'll be happy to release those. But remember, the IRS goes after people for political persecution.
Right.
They do it. And people should be very fearful of that, because that's not what our government system is designed to do. These are supposed to be nonpartisan individuals who we have seen time and time and time again. There's no accountability. Lois Lerner leaves her job at the IRS for going after 501c3s that are conservative. There's no recourse. She doesn't get fired. She doesn't lose her pension. This is a problem with the government. This is a problem with lack of leadership with the government. And that is the problem with the waste, fraud, and abuse that's taking place in our federal government that would end on day one of a Trump administration.